Anthropic said this model was too dangerous to release. Then they released it. Then the government pulled it. In April 2026, Anthropic made an announcement that most people outside the AI industry barely noticed. They had built a new model, the most capable model they had ever created, and they were not going to release it to the public. The reason they gave was not the usual hedge about responsible deployment or phased rollout timelines. It was more specific than that. The model, which they called Claude Mythos Preview, had demonstrated the ability to autonomously find and exploit zero-day vulnerabilities in real-world software. Not theoretical vulnerabilities, not controlled lab demonstrations, actual previously undiscovered security flaws in every major operating system and web browser currently in use. Over 99% of the vulnerabilities it found had not yet been patched. Anthropic said that AI models had reached a level of coding capability where they could surpass all but the most skilled humans at finding and exploiting software vulnerabilities. And because of that, they were keeping it out of public hands. That was April. On June 9th, 6 weeks later, Anthropic released it, under a new name, Claude Fable 5, available to anyone with a Pro subscription. And then on June 12th, 3 days after release, the United States government pulled it back. In the space of 6 weeks, the most powerful AI model ever released went from restricted to public to suspended. And the story of how that happened and what it means is the most important thing I can tell you about where AI is right now. Let's establish the full timeline before we get into the implications. April 2026. Anthropic launches Project Glasswing, a restricted program giving early access to Claude Mythos Preview to a small consortium of trusted partners. AWS, Microsoft, Apple, CrowdStrike. The explicit purpose: use the model's own capabilities to find and fix vulnerabilities in critical software before the model goes public. Give the defenders a head start. June 9th. Anthropic releases Fable 5 to the general public. The model they had restricted for 6 weeks is now available on every Pro, Max, Team, and Enterprise plan. With safeguards, sensitive cybersecurity requests, biology, chemistry queries all route to a different model. Anthropic says those safeguards activate in less than 5% of sessions. June 12th. At 5:21 p.m. Eastern Time, Anthropic receives a directive from the United States government. Citing national security authorities, the government issues an export control order suspending all access to Fable 5 and Mythos 5 by any foreign national, whether inside or outside the United States, including foreign national Anthropic employees. The net effect? Anthropic must disable Fable 5 for every single customer worldwide to ensure compliance. 3 days. Released and recalled in 3 days. Now let's talk about what the government actually said and what Anthropic said back. Because this is not a simple story. The government's directive, as Anthropic described it, did not provide specific details of its national security concern. What Anthropic understands is this: the government believes it has become aware of a method of bypassing Fable 5's safeguards, a jailbreak. Anthropic reviewed a demonstration of the specific technique, and here is what they found. The potential jailbreak is narrow and non-universal. It essentially consists of asking the model to read a specific code base and fix any software flaws. The vulnerabilities it surfaces appear relatively simple, and other publicly available models, including OpenAI's GPT 5.5, can discover them without any jailbreak at all. Anthropic's position is unambiguous. They are complying with the legal directive, but they disagree with it. In a public statement issued the same day, Anthropic wrote that they disagree that the finding of a narrow potential jailbreak should be cause for recalling a commercial model deployed to hundreds of millions of people. They stated that if this standard was applied across the industry, it would essentially halt all new model deployments for all frontier model providers. That is a company publicly pushing back against its own government's national security directive on the day it is forced to comply with it. Here is what this moment actually reveals. The Fable 5 timeline is not an accident. It is not a mistake. It is a map of exactly how hard the problem of deploying powerful AI actually is, and how fast the gap between capability and governance is widening. Anthropic restricted Mythos Preview because the capabilities were genuinely dangerous. They released Fable 5 because restricting it indefinitely was not a viable strategy. Other labs were building toward the same capabilities, and allowing those capabilities to exist only in less safety-conscious hands was the worst outcome. They built safeguards and deployed them. 3 days later, a jailbreak, one they believe is narrow, non-universal, and matched by existing public models, was enough for the government to issue an emergency national security directive, pulling the model for every user on Earth. The defenders had 6 weeks. The window closed in 3 days. This is not a story about a reckless company. Anthropic is probably the most safety-focused frontier AI lab operating today. This is a story about what happens when the pace of capability development outstrips the pace of every institution designed to evaluate and govern it. Legal frameworks, regulatory processes, government review cycles. None of them were built for a world where the most powerful tool ever deployed to the public can be restricted, released, and recalled within a 6-week window. And here's the part that deserves the most attention. Anthropic stated publicly that they believe perfect jailbreak resistance is not currently possible for any model provider, that every safeguard in the industry is vulnerable to non-universal jailbreaks, that universal jailbreaks will eventually be found. They said this clearly when they released Fable 5. Their strategy was not to make Fable 5 unbreakable, it was to make jailbreaks narrow or expensive, and to monitor actively for successful attacks. That is an honest strategy. It is also a strategy that is now being tested in real time by a government directive that may be based on exactly the kind of narrow, non-universal jailbreak Anthropic said would always exist. So what does this mean for you? In practical terms, Fable 5 is currently unavailable. All other Anthropic models are unaffected. Anthropic says they believe this is a misunderstanding and are working to restore access. But the practical situation is almost beside the point. What matters more is what this week has revealed about the world we are operating in. The jagged frontier we talked about in a previous video, the uneven boundary where AI helps brilliantly on one side and fails on the other, has a government dimension now. The question of which AI capabilities are available to you is not just a question of what the technology can do. It is a question of what the government will allow, decided on timelines and through processes that have no clear public visibility. Anthropic built the most powerful model ever deployed, restricted it, released it with safeguards, got pulled back by a government directive 3 days later based on a jailbreak they believe is equivalent to capabilities already publicly available elsewhere. The technology said it was ready. The safeguards said they were holding. The government said stop anyway. And the question that does not have a clean answer yet is the one that matters most. In a world where the capabilities exist regardless of what any single company does, where perfect safeguards are acknowledged by the builders themselves to be impossible, and where the governance frameworks are moving at a fraction of the speed of the technology, who decides when something is safe enough to deploy, and what happens when the answer changes 3 days later? Subscribe and drop a comment below. I want to know what you think. Was the government right to pull Fable 5? Or is Anthropic right that this sets a standard that would halt all frontier AI deployment? I will see you in the next one.